What up, guys? Spot on picks here. This week we got UFC 243 in Melbourne, Australia. Whittaker versus Adesanya. And, Dana White was hyping this card up. And, he failed to produce. A lot of, kind of weird fights on here, but the main event makes up for all that, man. This fight has the potential to be one of the greatest of all time. But there are 11 other fights, so let's get into all of them. First off, we got Khalid Taha versus Bruno Silva. Khalid Taha knocked out Boston Salmon in the first round in his last fight. Bruno Silva is making his debut. He was a former flyweight. Um, he trains over there with Henry Cejudo and that team. And, the first thing I noticed is obviously the size difference. This guy Bruno's moving up the division. Khalid Taha actually fought at featherweight previously. And, Khalid Taha, he has good power in his hands. Bruno Silva is really just like, he's a real athletic guy, kind of average striking. And, he doesn't, it was hard to find tape on this guy because I know he was on the Ultimate Fighter Brazil. And, he lost one and won one. And the one he won, he broke a guy's jaw. And the one he lost, he got choked out. So after that, he went on a nice little run outside of the UFC. Had a draw with Casey Kenny. But, Khalid Taha, I think he's too big for Bruno, honestly. And the way this guy his boxing is really good, man. He was controlled in his debut by Nadia, but that was at featherweight. This guy's moving down to bantamweight, and Bruno Silva's moving up from flyweight. And, I just don't think he's going to have any success in the grappling. I say Taha could finish him at some point. I think Bruno might gas himself out trying to wrestle, and Taha will put him away. And we got Nadia Kaseem versus Yeon Kim. Nadia Kaseem fought Montana De La Rosa in her last fight. Just got submitted in the first round pretty easily. And Yeon Kim, I think she fought Valentina's sister. Yeah, and she just got a decision. But it was so weird when I saw this, man. This girl, Nadia Kaseem, before she got in the UFC, she only fought one opponent. Oh, no, she didn't. Before she got in the UFC, she didn't fight anyone with a win. Look, all these girls, 0-0, 0-0, 0-4, 0-0. And then she fought Alexa Chambers, who's, even worse than her. Yeon Kim, she got a couple wins in the UFC, man. She's been in the UFC since 2017, made her debut against Pitolo, and she likes to box. She has a little bit of a size advantage on Nadia, and Nadia really, she has zero pop in her punches. She has pillow hands. She's a terrible fighter. She has one win over Alexa Chambers, but Alexa Chambers is the only fighter actually worse than her. Yeon Kim is decent, but she's levels ahead of Nadia, and I'm telling you that. That's my lock of the night, man. This girl Nadia is a terrible fighter. We got Brad Riddell versus Jamie Mullarkey. This is a mismatch. Both guys are making their debut, but Mullarkey looks like an amateur compared to Riddell. Mullarkey actually got knocked out by Brad Riddell's teammate, Alex Volkanovski. And, this guy's just a Australian fighter. Not much to offer, very green, and, it's just, Riddell will probably be a huge favorite as he should be, but I guess they're just welcoming Brad Riddell to the UFC. This is an easy one in my opinion. We got Megan Anderson versus Zarah Farn dos Santos. Um, you know, both big girls. Megan's a little bit bigger, and we haven't seen much from Megan. You know, she has to prove that she belongs in the UFC. She got blessed, kicked Katsungano in the eye. She got ragdolled by Holly Holm, and Felicia Spencer just choked her out real quick. Dos Santos, she's really green. She kind of just likes to stick that jab out there and then bring the right hand over. And, you know, she got beat a couple times and she's very green. Um, James Krause, Megan Anderson's coach, he was saying that, they made a lot of improvements in Megan's game. And I believe it. She already had a decent base, good knees and, good work on the inside, good, clinch work. And, Dos Santos is just so too green in my opinion. So, I think Anderson can finally get a real win in the UFC. Got Callan Potter versus Makai Pitolo. Um, Makai is a solid Hawaiian fighter off the Contender Series. Um, Colin Potter, he got KO'd by Jalen Turner in his home country in Australia on the last Adesanya card, and it was just sad, man. Uh, Jalen Turner doesn't, he's not that good. So if you're getting knocked out by him like that in the UFC, man, then you're putting you up against a young, hungry guy in Makai Pitolo. This guy Pitolo, he melted a dude with body shots to get the contract on the Contender Series. And I'm only way I see this is a first round knockout. I think Turner knocked him out in the first round. Yeah. So I just really think that's how this fight's going down. Pitolo first round knockout. We got Yorgan de Castro versus Justin Tafa. Yorgan, he was a big underdog on the Contender Series. Um, I when I saw the lineup, I picked him on Tapology, and he basically fought like some 300-pound wrestler. Just kicked him in the leg and just made him tap out to leg kick. Um, Tafa, he's a heavy-handed brawler. He likes to throw bombs, and he only has 3 fights. But in his first fight versus Dylan, I'm just calling him Dylan. In his first fight versus Dylan, this dude Dylan's basically like a light heavyweight, and he was putting it on Justin. He was beating him up. He had Tafa rocked at some points of that fight, but at the end of the third round, Tafa basically just sat on top of him, got him at mount, and just it was an early stoppage, but he basically just sat on top of him. He's not going to be able to do that to De Castro. De Castro is more of a technician. He has some of the best leg kicks I've ever seen. Good footwork for a heavyweight as well. Very good fight IQ. Doesn't put himself in bad positions. And, this guy was like a plus 600 underdog on the Contender Series. So, um, he has a lot of heart and very skilled for that division. I got De Castro on that one. Jake Mathews versus Rostem Akman. Um, Interesting matchup because, you know, Jake Mathews in his recent fights at 170, he never stops backing up. In Rostem Akman's fights, he never stops walking forward. Um, and the thing about Mathews is, I don't think he's as good as he was at 55. Without that size advantage, he seems to be struggling. I mean, especially in the fight against Rocco Martin, Rocco was basically able to just, neutralize his striking and just, kind of just wither him down in the third round and just get the choke. But I see Akman decision all day in this one. I just think the contrast in styles of Akman just walking forward. I thought Akman won his last fight. He got robbed, in my opinion. But Akman's he pressures. He's a good counter striker, and you know Mathews also doesn't have much of a gas tank. So I say Rostem should win a decision or KO Mathews if Mathews gasses towards the end of the fight. And we got Jumeau versus Dhiego Lima. You couldn't give Dhiego Lima a better matchup. Jumeau he's worse than Court McGee. And you've seen what Dhiego Lima did to him. He just beat him up for 3 rounds. Um, if you're gonna strike with Lima, because this dude Luke's just a pure striker. If you're gonna strike with Lima and you're giving Lima the size and reach advantage, good luck with that, man. Because that's just not how you wanna. Unless you're gonna you're a strong grappler. Because Dhiego Lima's really been improving his striking lately. He knocked out Laprise. He beat up Court McGee. This dude Jumeau, he's has a few fights in the UFC, but that dude Daichi Daichi he's a straight bomb in his last fight. He hasn't really fought any tough competition in the UFC. I see Dhiego just beating him up. He could very well knock him out in the first round, or he could win a decision, but I see Dhiego winning that one all day. All right, then we got Tuivasa versus Sergey Spivak. I'd say Tuivasa has a 99% chance to win this fight. Spivak is a generational terrible fighter. Just very bad, man. Um, a lot of people were kind of high on him when he made his debut, but Walt Harris just handled him very quickly. And Tuivasa's at home for this one, so um, just Spivak's just so terrible. He just broke so quickly against Walt Harris. Tuivasa can throw hammers, man. Don't forget that. So uh, I see Tuivasa getting back to his winning ways and probably knocking out Sergey at some point. And we got the co-main event: Iaquinta versus Daniel Hooker, the Hangman. This guy Iaquinta, man, he hasn't lost very much, but he also doesn't fight very much. He looked decent against Kevin Lee, but after that, we found out that Kevin Lee has been pretty much garbage since then. Um, got exposed by Donald Cerrone completely. And, I think Al doesn't do well against guys with a reach advantage on him. He's beat guys, he takes long layoffs and he gets these favorable matchups like Ross Pearson, Diego Sanchez, but, um, you know, they robbed Masvidal when he fought him. Khabib just handled him. And he got a little win over, Kevin Lee, who, let's be honest, man, Kevin Lee he's not that good. We got Dan Hooker, and Dan Hooker has the better wins on his record, in my opinion. Um, wins over guys like Jim Miller, Mark Diakese, um, guys like James Vick, Gilbert Burns. I mean, we see how good Gilbert Burns is now, man. So he's a good resume. He's come up short a few times in his career, but to a guy like Al in his home country, I don't see that. And the Barboza fight, he let a lot of people down, but you know, he just couldn't handle that switch kick to the body that Barboza was throwing. Quinta can't throw a switch kick like Barboza. Um, it's not really that threatening of a matchup for Hooker, in my opinion. Um, Al, his footwork kind of got exposed in the Cerrone fight. If you can kind of just keep him on the end of your punches, um, I think Hooker beats him up on the feet. The crowd will go crazy, and Hooker just wins a decision. He could pit Iaquinta away with one of those knees up the middle, but I'd say Hooker decision because Al was very tough to finish. And we got the main event: Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. Um, Robert Whittaker's 28, Adesanya's 30. Adesanya got the 3-inch height advantage, 6.5-inch reach advantage. This guy Robert Whittaker, man, he hasn't fought since June of 2018. Very long layoff. He's a champ, and you know, I really think Adesanya is going to test his cardio because when you take that time off, it's harder for your body to handle the pace that a championship fight is. Um, Adesanya's fought 5 times since Whittaker's last fight, and 3 of those were main events. Um, you know, Besides the cardio factor in this fight, I think Whittaker's going to try to initiate the grappling sooner or later. But I honestly do not think he can hold Adesanya down. I mean, you can listen to a lot of MMA people, a lot of smart people around the MMA world, and they all noticed the grappling improvements Adesanya has made since he got into the UFC. Look at Luke Thomas's breakdown of this fight. It'll probably come out this week. But, man, this guy's one of the most rapidly improving fighters in UFC history. And, I've been on the hype train since this dude got into the UFC. And he proved so many people wrong, man. Uh, from Wilkinson to the interim title. And, you know, he's here now. Um, as for Robert Whittaker, he is a very good fighter. He's a former welterweight. And if you remember the Yoel Romero fight, Whittaker was half gas in the second half of the fight. The only problem was Romero was gas more than him, man. Romero has no gas tank, and he was hanging in there with Whittaker in the end of that second half. Um, Look at Adesanya in the 5th round versus Gastelum, man. That striking cardio, man. That cardio is just impeccable, man. Accurate with his strikes, and Yoel was knocking Whittaker silly in the second half of that fight, man. Um, if you gas like that against Adesanya in there, man, he will put your lights out. He'll drop you. And Whittaker, in my opinion, I think that he's really gonna try to force that grappling. I think Adesanya's ready for that. Um, I see Whittaker overextending himself and Adesanya putting him down at some point. Adesanya's the new undisputed champ. Let's get it. Seriously, man. This guy's had one of the quickest rises in the sport's history, and I think he's gonna make history on Saturday night. I got Adesanya in that one. I mean, that's it for that card. Thank you guys for watching. Whoever made it this far. Usually it's hard on these foreign cards, but once I watched the film for this fight, I had a very clear understanding of how these fights are gonna play out. I'm very confident in it. Um, yeah, that's it for this week, guys. Drop a comment below. Tell me if you disagree with my picks, and I'll shout you out in the next video if you're right. Thank you for watching. Until next time.